Sometimes life gives us lemons. Sometimes it gives us lemonade. Other times it gives us something entirely out of left field that makes us say, WTF. But no matter what obstacles come, there is most often a way out on the other side, and we are once again victorious. My name is Dr. Rowe, and you are listening to my podcast about resilience. Every guest shares a tragedy to triumph story to give listeners like you the inspiration to push through every single day. Listen now as my next guest shares how they were life-jacked.
What do you do when your mind, body, and soul seem to be disconnected with life around you and not under your control? My name is Dr. Rowe, and this is LifeJacked, the Resilience Podcast. LifeJacked is when an unfortunate or unplanned event happens to jack with your life. My guest for this week, Alana Joy Newton, worked as a registered nurse before pursuing her master's in counseling psychology. She has been practicing as a psychotherapist for over 15 years and is also a reconnection coach. As a reconnection coach and speaker, she guides others through the process of reconnecting with their body, heart, and soul to uncover their purpose and joy. She has always experienced her body as different than her peers, although it certainly did not appear any different. She experienced many unusual injuries and health complications growing up that would often turn into life-threatening events. She proclaims as she hit bumps on her path, she has learned to meet them with curiosity, compassion, and gratitude. She believes all of our experiences support us in uncovering our authentic self and are an integral part of the tapestry of this beautiful, messy human life. Hi, Alana. Welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show. How are you?
I'm just so joyful to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me to connect with you today.
Yes. Now, when you were younger, you experienced many injuries and health scares that somehow turned into life-threatening events. For example, can you share the story of just going in for a simple tonsillectomy?
Yeah, so my body gave me messages throughout my life that something was a bit different. And so this is one example of how it was a bit different. I had a routine tonsillectomy when I was 9 years old, pretty straightforward surgery. And then, a week later, I was having some difficulties, and it actually there's a long story here, which I won't give you the long version of it, but I felt like I had a French fry stuck in my ear, and I remember telling my brothers, I have a French fry stuck in my ear, and their little sister, they were so annoyed by me, telling them I had a French fry stuck in my ear. And then actually that night, I started vomiting up blood, and I was hemorrhaging, and so maybe what had happened is the French fry had punctured the sutures. I don't still know exactly what it was that happened, but that led to a hemorrhage, and I lost a significant amount of blood, needing a blood transfusion, and actually I almost died. And 9-year-old me didn't know really what was happening, and even now adult me is still reconciling exactly what that experience was, but I've come to understand that what I experienced was a near-death experience. And it's kind of the classic, for anyone who knows about near-death experiences, I saw the light, I had this out-of-body experience, I saw my body lying on the table and surrounded by doctors and nurses trying to get the bleeding to stop, trying to get the OR set up to operate on me and stop the bleeding. And, as I said, I'm still trying to reconcile exactly what happened in this experience, but through that, I felt this sense of love, support, and guidance from another realm that I had never experienced before, and has stayed with me. It stayed with me, yeah. And I'm still trying to understand what all that was, but it was quite profound.
Wow. So you were 9 years old when you had this experience, right?
Yeah.
This near-death experience. So how did you feel after that? So you come back into your body, you join us again in the natural world.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you feel after that?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I couldn't make sense of it. There was no, you know, it's not something that I really talked about afterwards. No one asked me. So, and I didn't have any, I don't know, you know, religious or spiritual beliefs. That just wasn't really something, that my family practiced. And so I didn't really have a way to explore it. And so I disconnected from it. I couldn't make sense of it. I didn't even really try. I disconnected from it. And in doing so, I was, in hindsight, I've realized I was kind of disconnecting from my soul self. And there are many episodes throughout my life where I disconnected from the soul self because I didn't really have a framework of understanding it. And to talk about it seemed a bit, you know, crazy, woo-woo, whatever labels we want to apply to it, especially being in a family that was very, I'd say, kind of head-focused, science-based, logic, you know, if science can't support it, it doesn't happen. So, yeah, I had no way of understanding what I experienced, and so I just cut that off.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned being disconnected from your soul self, and you have stated, and as I stated in the intro, that you have always felt that your body was different than others. Mm-hmm. How so?
Mm-hmm. So that's what I experienced with my tonsillectomy and hemorrhage and near-death experience was one of those. And I know I'm not alone in that. Many have had near-death experiences, you know, but just this feeling of, you know, what was happening in my body, you know, kind of wasn't true. I had this sense of, that not quite belonging in my body. And so another example is, you know, I had a minor fall off my bike and, broke my wrist, cast on, cast off. But then, you know, weeks later, I was still limping, and I was told that everything was fine and actually that I was faking it for attention. So fast forward that story, it was actually discovered that I had a condition in my leg and put me at risk of never walking again. And miraculously, I did walk again. But it was another, message to me that what I'm experiencing in my body is not true. And so to not believe my body, I now know that that message was erroneous. So my body is actually very wise, as is everyone's body. But this is my takeaway. You know, that was my takeaway at the time, that the messages I'm getting from my body are not to be trusted.
Wow, I can't even imagine how that would feel, because you are with your body every day and you have to trust your body, right? That you have to trust that you're going to get up, you're going to walk forward, you're going to do all the things that you need to do to keep yourself alive. And so to have a distrust within yourself, I mean, I could imagine that felt, what did that feel like?
Yeah, disorienting, really, you know. Not connected, because you're right, we're in our bodies every day. But I was so disconnected from it. I had been conditioned to believe I can't trust it, and so I was like a floating head, you know.
Now, you were diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. Can you tell the listeners what this diagnosis is and kind of what has it meant for your life?
Yeah, it's been profound, and it's a bit of a mouthful, that name. So Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome is a rare genetic condition of the connective tissue. So, the glue that holds the body together, the collagen. And we often think of collagen, you know, when we think of skin, but it's not just, surface layer skin. Collagen is found in every body system, in our muscles, in our skin, in our joints, in our internal organs, in our blood vessels, in our heart. This collagen is found in every body part. It's a major building block. And so I was diagnosed until my late 30s, but being a genetic condition, I'd had it from birth. And so, I lived my life with these kind of, unusual occurrences, atypical occurrences in my body. I just kind of stumbled through, like literally stumbled through. I had lots of trips and falls because of my poor connective tissue, very flexible, very malleable, very uncoordinated. But I just kind of, flew under the radar. And again, being told that what was happening in my body was not to be trusted. And so I kind of blended in mostly. And then, it's a long story to get to the diagnosis, but when I finally received the diagnosis, it was this feeling of like vindication. Like, okay, all these dots now connect. There's that word. All these dots now connect together. All these experiences that I'd had in my body, it all of a sudden all made sense. So I felt vindicated, but I also felt grief. Because this diagnosis is, in essence, it's degenerative because collagen depletes with aging anyways, and so my collagen is already kind of now not working so well. And so, and there's quite a wide spectrum of disability for people with this condition. And so, there's no cure. It's all treatment, and can't really know how I'm going to be affected. So it was a profound moment receiving that diagnosis, both that relief and that grief of what does this now mean for my life, and really the impact that diagnosis had on my life was, it sent me into this deep, dark spiral of, am I living my life? My mortality was, facing me face to face with my mortality, and I was invited to question, am I living my life? And, I took the name of my diagnosis, I took it quite literally, disorder of connection. And so I did a deep dive exploration of how am I disconnected in my life? Where am I connected? Where am I not connected? Yeah. And so this excavation has proved to be my soul's purpose here.
Now, you say that the Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, of course, is a degenerative disease and there's no cure for it. So what exactly is the treatment? How do they know how to treat this condition?
Well, there is no cure. It's, at the DNA level, the map for the collagen is faulty. And so the treatment is, managing symptom by symptom. And again, because, collagen is found in every body system, the treatment is for every body system. And so people are affected. There are actually 7 types of EDS, and, to varying degrees of different systems being affected. The particular type I have, I'm a little bit affected in every system, whereas some people are primarily affected, let's say, in their skin and their joints, or primarily affected in their, the heart, their blood vessels. So I have the type that I'm a little bit affected in every system. And so, it's just, kind of ongoing maintenance. I've learned how to, kind of prevent the dislocations. I've learned how to, honestly, it's a whole laundry list of symptoms. We could talk about that for over an hour, so I won't share all those details, but it's, just being mindful of the variety of ways that I'm affected, and staying on top of it. And again, it comes back to listening to my body, listening to my body. What message is my body giving me right now? Oh, I'm feeling a little bit dizzy. My blood pressure is low because my blood vessels are so stretchy. So I need to drink more water. I need to have more salt. So it's really just have a very attuned relationship with body.
Now, speaking of systems, you mentioned that EDS affects several body systems, and of course we know that our body, with its several systems working together, help to support us, right? Mm-hmm. So that brings me to people in our lives, right? The people in our lives that form a support system for us. Have you always had a support system?
Yes. I have a support system, I guess what I've come to learn over the years is to really rely on myself Yeah, and that's not to kind of discredit those who have supported me throughout my life. And I know that, the one who's always going to be here for me is me. Yeah, I certainly don't say this begrudgingly. People have, their lives and, themselves to support. And so, yeah, I've really learned to become my own support system. And when there are support of others in my life, that's a bonus.
Do you think it's important to have a support system? Because I understand, I understand you saying that self-reliance is important, because you're right. That's the only person really that you can count on is yourself, for sure, 100%. But do you believe it's important to maybe have a support system of people?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that support system may change over time. Yeah. But, as humans, of course, we have connection needs. We have a need for belonging. We have a need for a support system. We're meant to survive, in communities. And so absolutely, support system. And even if it's a support system of one, it is, it's critical for our survival and resilience. Yeah.
Now, after finding out that you have EDS and going through the reconnection process after you realize you're disconnected from yourself, and then now you found out why. And so what is the difference in you now than the you back then?
Yeah. So, when I was diagnosed, within a short time after that, less than 2 years, my father died. And, so these two catalyzing events really dropped me to that deep, dark place of, who am I? And starting this excavation process of, connecting with who I really am. And what I came to realize is that, like so many, I had kind of, constructed this life based on conditioning or patterns or beliefs about who I thought I needed to be in this world, who I thought I needed to be accepted. And so, when I dropped down to that deep, dark place, it's like, oh, okay, some of these ways I was conditioned to believe, like, it's not actually who I am. And so can I start to reconnect with who I really am? And, when we're not living our truest self, we feel that discomfort. And I believe we see this in society by the many ways people numb, and distract themselves from this disconnection of self, And so, let's look at, substance use or, any sort of addiction. It's to soothe this, it's try to fill this void, right? This void of lack of connection with self. And so this is one of the ways that I saw, or I transformed my life, is I started to cut away all these behaviors I was doing to kind of numb myself to this discomfort I was feeling of not being connected with my authentic self. Yeah. And so one of the things I did was I cut alcohol out of my life, and I was never, it was not like I was never diagnosed as an alcoholic, but I knew when I was picking up a glass of wine, I'd say probably 99.9% of the time, I was drinking because I just felt this kind of nagging, soul deep discomfort of not being who I really was. And I didn't know how to be who I really was. And so I drank to numb to that feeling. So then when I, started to peel away all this conditioning and uncovered who I really was, these behaviors just kind of naturally fell off. I no longer needed them.
That is really deep. There's so many of us, we may not even know that we are disconnected, right? Who knows?
Right?
Because we have the strange moments where you're like, is this happening to me? Like, what's going on right now? It's where things seem so surreal. So you are a reconnection coach. Okay. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about your process of connecting with your inner self and, going through that process. So what exactly is a reconnection coach for others?
Yeah, so, this title is just a title, but, I think it succinctly describes the work I guide clients through, and it's very much a reflection of my own journey. So I guide clients through the process of reconnecting with their body, reconnecting with their heart, reconnecting with their soul. And I kind of guide them through. It's not a linear path, as life isn't, but I guide them through this process of, starting to listen to their bodies, starting to receive those messages, listening to their heart, receiving their emotions. So often, we've been conditioned to believe that certain emotions are okay or not okay, and a fairly stereotypical one is like, oh, girls shouldn't feel anger, be the good girl, be the nice girl, yeah? And so, to start to peel back these conditioned beliefs around feelings that, oh, we're not supposed to have those, oh, but I do because I'm human, and then, then we maybe disconnect from that. Growing up, we disconnect from that emotion. And so, what I guide clients through is acknowledging that it's okay. That was the conditioned belief. It's okay to have that emotion like anger. Anger is just a physiological response to threat, yeah? So to meet that emotion with understanding and validation and compassion, to allow ourselves to reconnect with the emotions, with the emotional messages we're getting from our body, because they're really just here to support us. Yeah, our sensations from our body, our emotions from our heart are really just here to support us. And so to compassionately reconnect with them, yeah? And then when we start to peel back those layers and all the false beliefs about body and heart, when we peel that back, then we start to get to the level of soul and reconnecting with our soul. Who am I really? What do I actually want in this life? What do I value? And examining our values, often we adopt values like it's a last name, we just kind of pass on to us. So really examining critically, is this actually me, or is this just what I thought I had to be, but maybe I actually don't want to be this? Yes, what is my soul yearning to be? And so reconnecting with their soul, and when we do that, we discover our essence, and then that just naturally flows into a meaningful, a joyful life. That's been my experience and the many I've guided.
And you have a program called Beneath the Surface, Excavating Your Authentic Self. Now, I don't want you to give away any of your secrets, because we definitely want to sign up for this program and work with you. But essentially, how can this program help others?
So this program is basically the process that I had just shared with you. It guides clients, participants through that journey of reconnecting with their body. And part of what I weave into this is that, I do have a background as a registered nurse. I have quite a thorough understanding of the body and specifically of the nervous system. So I weave in this understanding of the body, of the science. And so I bridge the science to the spirituality. I bridge the science to the woo-woo, as we may say, or as I once said at a time, to, bring it all in together. Where our body, our mind, our spirit, they're not separate. And so often Western medicine compartmentalizes these parts of self, but really they're also integrated. And so this program offers an integrated approach to reconnect with body, heart, and soul, and to then discover one's own, purpose, the essence of their soul, and that will give their life meaning.
Now, can you share one of your favorite success stories from helping one of your clients?
Yeah. I do have. I'm just so honored to do this work. Really, it's such a blessing in my life to be able to support others through this process. And I recently had a client share with me that I saved their life, quite literally. And often when people are at this, this broken open place of, maybe they've received a diagnosis, or it's a death of a loved one, or something, significant has brought them to their knees in their life, yeah? And it is often a life or death scenario. I work with many clients who are, considering ending their life because of the stress. And so, when we start to go through that process of peeling back the beliefs, peeling back the conditioned beliefs of who they thought they were, who they were told they were, examining that voice of the inner critic, so taking off all these parts of themselves that are not self, and they start to reconnect with who they really are. There's a life force. That is a life-giving energy, our authentic self. And so this particular client, as we've been walking through this process, he shared with me that I've saved his life because he's now starting to understand that all these beliefs about himself were not true. They weren't true. And so now he has, more reason to live and more hope for his future as he reconnects with who he really is.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, one of the things that's very befitting about you is your middle name, Joy.
Yeah.
And for the persons who have seemed to have lost their joy within life, what are 3 things that they can do to start this rediscovery process?
Yeah. My name, it was given to me by my grandmother, and I'm realizing now, not by accident. It is the essence of my soul. It's the essence of all of our souls. Sometimes I just need the reminder right there in my middle name. And so, to reconnect with joy, in my experience, how to do that is to first, as we've been talking about, to first, allow these sensations of our body to be felt, allow these emotions from our heart to be felt, to connect with them with compassion, allow them to be there. Yeah. And so when we start to allow them to be there, we decrease our resistance to them. So when we're in a state of resistance, and going back to the science of it, because I just love talking about the nervous system, going back to the science of it, when we're in a state of resistance, we're fighting what is, and so that's activating our fight, flight, freeze response. Yeah, we're in that charged up state of our nervous system, that crisis part of our nervous system. So when we start to allow our sensations, allow our emotions to be there, we lessen the resistance to what is, and it starts to actually soothe our nervous system. And so when we're in that soothed state of nervous system, where the parasympathetic state, used in the technical terms, when they're in that calm state of our nervous system, that's when we can open ourselves to gratitude and then to joy. It might not be in exactly that order, but it's from that calm nervous system state that we're able to open and connect. Because when we're in an activated nervous system state, we're in a state of protection. Yeah, we're protecting ourselves. When we're in a calm nervous system state, we're in a state of connection. We can't both protect and connect at the same time. So to connect with joy, we must first soothe our nervous system, decrease that inner resistance to whatever it is that's happening, knowing that all of our feelings and our sensations, they all belong, and then that opens our capacity to connect with joy.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those 3 tips, and I hope you listeners out there grabbed a hold of those gems. Now, in your opinion, what are the best ways to build resilience?
Yeah. So, just like we've been talking about, the best way to build resilience is starting with that relationship with self, starting with, compassionately accepting all parts of self, because, we don't change in conditions of criticism. We change in conditions of compassion. And so to accept and love, understand, be curious about all our parts of self, and that will give us the resilience to, whatever it is that comes our way, we know that we're accepting it. We're not resisting it. When we resist, then we become rigid and stiff. And you can think of the tree. You think of a tree, how it bends and doesn't break. Well, some trees break more than bend, but if you think of the willow tree, how it bends. So allowing, not resisting our experiences is one of the key ingredients to resilience.
Well, Alana, thank you so much for your time. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you too.
Can you take the time to let everyone know how they can contact you if they are interested in participating in a session with you?
Yeah. So they can find me on my website. It's alanajoynewton.com. It's undergoing some changes, but they'll be able to find me there. Even if it's just through the email button, I do have a list of my programs. You can also work with me individually. So just sending me an email, and together we can get on a call and explore the best ways for us to connect.
Any last words of encouragement for the listeners?
Yeah. I often think of the words of Rumi, the poet, and he shared, "Our gifts are in our wounds." And so for your listeners who are feeling wounded and maybe in that dark place, to remember that, in that broken, open place, that's where we find our light. That's where we find our gifts for our own healing and to support the healing of others. And so, in the darkness, there is light. There is light. Hang on.
Well, Alana, I wish you and your family nothing but blessings and abundance. Please
thank you to you as well. Yeah, you too.
Hey, are you really loving this podcast, or did you really enjoy this week's episode? Then please subscribe, like, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. And remember to live, laugh, love, learn, and then repeat. See you in the next episode.